Hi, good day, everyone. My name is Ron Olasco from International Trade Council. Thank you for attending today's educational session. Before we start, I just want to make a quick housekeeping. If anyone can hear me, please type in yes on the chat box, and if you can also see the PowerPoint presentation on the screen. All right, thank you. Thank you so much. All right, so our topic for today is how money mover and how to think like a bank. Our speaker is Victoria Soltes, CEO of PSB Angels. In this webinar, we will learn history of banking and compliance, understanding banking and payment risk and cost, and how to set up a payment strategy. Now, let's hear directly from our esteemed speaker who will delve deeper into the topic. Please join me in welcoming Victoria Soltes. Go ahead, Victoria.
Hi there, everyone. Hi, and thank you very much for having this opportunity to be able to be with you here today. My name is Victoria Scholtes. Let me switch on the camera. So yeah, that's me. My name is Victoria Scholtes, and I'm the founder of PSP Angels, which is a payment consultancy, and I'm the author of the book of Moving Money, how banks think. So this is what we are going to talk about today in a bit more detail. Let me start with actually an interesting story, which allows you to understand that how I ended up in this industry and why we are consulting about payments. Back in Cyprus, I had a business connection. I could even say a friend, George, who, when the whole blockchain crypto investment frenzy started back in 2017, he gave me a call and he told me that, Victoria, I understand that you're specialized in interesting payment methods. Guess what? I went online, I paid a little money for a crypto exchange, and I got myself a Bitcoin. Back in the day, the Bitcoin was somewhere around 500 euros. The guy couldn't wait for a long time. So a couple of weeks later, he cashed out for 50 euro profit. So he cashed out 550 euros. Now, little he knew that the banks were not friendly towards cryptocurrency transactions. So he managed to not only block his personal account, get himself on a higher risk from a banking perspective, increasing his mortgage repayments. But unfortunately, it took him more than 2-3 months until he managed to discuss everything with the banker. Little he knew that for payments and banking nowadays, you really have to plan ahead, and you really need to understand how banks think and how money moves in order to make the right decision when it comes to payment and banking. So this is what we are going to talk about today. Allow me to share my screen, and let's start with the presentation. So yes, how to think like a bank. At the beginning, we will go through a bit more details about the history of the banking and how we ended up here, what we are doing. But first, a couple of words about myself. So my name is Victoria Scholtes, as I mentioned, and I am the CEO and founder of the PSP Angels Group. Our Cyprus branch is dealing with accounting, audit, and fiduciary. Actually, I started up as a tax advisor more than 20 years ago. Gosh, it's too much to even mention it. But yes, back in the days, I started up as a tax accountant, tax advisor, advising clients on how to set up different taxation structures. And that's how I ended up with payments when I had questions and problems like my story, George, at the beginning of the presentation. Right now, we have different branches. The Maltese branch is specialized in iGaming and online gambling payment issues and banking issues. Specifically, it is more involved in the betting and online gaming, gambling, payment issues and banking. The Greek branch is dealing with mergers and acquisitions of licensed companies. So we are buying, selling financial institutions, banks, e-money institutions, payment institutions, crypto exchanges, everything which has a financial license. And we are advising to those companies as well. And the company, PSP Angels, won the Payment Consultants of the Year award and also the most insightful payment consultancy firm award. And we were in the top 10 startups from Cyprus mentioned as well. And I just recently launched my book, Moving Money, How Banks Think. It is available on Amazon, in every Amazon store, so it doesn't matter where you are. This contains all these interesting stories that I try to summarize in this short period of 45 minutes for you. It has real-time stories about payment and banking hurdles. It has some explanations about different banking expressions and giving you tips and hints of how to set up a payment plan. So who are the payment consultants? What do we do? We are taking a pride that we are independent payment consultants. That means that we have a large network of different payment service providers and banks, and we understand what's going on in the market. Who is delivering? What is the fees that it's being charged? What are the different banking and payment service providers that your company specifically can use? I would say if you're a startup company or an international group of company moving money internationally, I can bet my life that you had somewhere during your career some kind of difficulty with the banking or the compliance. Either it was frozen funds, a lot of compliance questions from the bank, rejected application, when you apply for a bank account and you're getting rejected. So nowadays we have a lot of problems, mainly for online businesses. And as I mentioned, startups specifically, and international companies, because the banking compliance is not the same everywhere. So different countries are dealing with payment compliance in a different way. And you, as the suffering victim of a client, is the one who tries to figure out that how to move money in a cheaper, safer, and better way. So this is what we are advising. We are not only advising on the online businesses, but also, as I mentioned, the financial institutions and the banks. We are helping a couple of financial institution clients at the moment how to introduce higher risk portfolio to their existing portfolio, or how to keep up to date with the different trends when it comes to banking and payments. What's the latest trend? Different geolocations are using different banking and payment rails. So, for example, in Europe, everybody is using the cards, but in Africa, people don't really have cards. They have mobile payments. Or if you're going to Latin America, for example, people are walking into the kiosk, buying a top of voucher, and those vouchers are being used online as a form of payment. So there are a lot of different understanding and ways of payments and banking as of today. But unfortunately, the information is not really summarized in one channel. So it's very hard for online businesses at the moment to keep up to date with where the money comes from, how much, how often, what currency, who am I doing the hedging with, who is doing the currency exchange for me, where do I keep the money, how safe it is, what are the different risks which are associated with payments. So this is what we are doing through our huge network of banks and financial providers. We understand who is offering what, summarizing and creating a so-called market intelligence, which we are explaining to our clients. I also mentioned setting up the payment plan. This is something that I'm not really seeing a lot nowadays. People are just opening accounts because the bank is close to them, walking down in the high street and just walking into the first bank and taking all the banking fees as a given. Planning payments can save so much headaches, so much risk, and so much cost that I think it's time to start talking about it and actually realize the importance for that. And of course, through this consultancy work, we see everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So you can actually specialize to resolve complex cases, international businesses, and money movements. So let's go back a bit to mention how the banks ended up here. What were the history of the banks which led us here today? Let's go back to the ancient time when tribes were dealing with each other through barters. I've got some barley, you've got a chicken, let's exchange it. So that's the origin of the payment, of the money movements at the beginning, when there was not even existence of money as what we are using today. It was very hard for people to find each other who has what we need and need what we have. So these tribes later on developed into a commodity-based system, which was at the beginning some unique shells, or it was some special rock, and the community as a whole agreed to have a value connected to that unit. Later on, it evolved to be gold, and it was used over centuries back at the history, because gold was scarce enough, gold was valuable enough, it was easier to carry than shells which can be broken, and this led to the origin of banking, whereby when people wanted to carry these values and the golds, it was hard. So when they went to wars, and when they started traveling, they needed some kind of security, a safeguarding place where they can deposit their gold and make sure that they are not going to be robbed on the way. That was the birth of the banks. So these banks gave, in return of the deposits, an IOU notes. And those notes then started to be used all around the world as a form of payment, because they trusted the bank and they knew that once this IOU note goes back to the bank, they can redeem it to gold. So in a nutshell, that was the history of the bank, which led us to use the currency that we are using today. And it's very important to mention that this started with the trust of the system. If I don't trust that the bank will be there and redeeming my IOU note to gold, I would never be able to actually maintain this system and accept those IOU notes as a form of payment. So the whole system is based on imaginary concepts which are only existing in the mindset of the tribes and of the people who are actually using this system. So up to the Second World War, this gold-based standard was used everywhere in the world. And through the First and the Second World War, there was a lot of problems in the world and the economics between those countries who were involved in these world wars. So at 1944, there was an agreement in Bretton Woods whereby America declared itself as the leading economy. Everybody trusts America that they will be able to back up with gold all of these so-called IOU notes, all the money which is fueling the economy worldwide. And they agreed that they are fixing a price for the dollar which is connected to gold. So that means that through the Second World War, everybody lost trust in every economy, but because America emerged as a winner, their economy was strong enough for the whole world to put their trust in their system, and trusting when America said that no matter what happens, use the dollar because I will always exchange it for gold for you. So this stabilized after the Second World War the trust in the system again, and that was used over 30 years when, unfortunately, Nixon, back in 1971, declared a new prosperity without war and erased this gold standards. Why? Because America just couldn't hoard any more gold and safeguard those. Around half of the world's gold stock was actually kept in America, waiting to be redeemed to the dollar, as America back promised in 1944. But unfortunately, this system was not scalable, not maintainable. So Nixon declared out of the blue, it was a very big surprise for everyone, that we are abandoning the gold standard, guys. Trust our system. You don't need the gold to back up what I'm saying because I'm the most powerful and the most advanced economy in the world. And actually, that's what happened. Even though that it was meant to be temporarily, This is what we are using as of today. So the whole financial system is based on trust. It's based on governments to maintain this system and back up whatever money, whatever currency we are actually circulating, printing, and giving to the economy as of today. So it's very important to understand when we are talking about banking compliance to go back to the origins and understand that the whole economy and the money flow and the flow of the different currencies is actually based on an illusion of the value. It has to be maintained by a trust-based economy. As soon as people are losing trust, the whole system is getting collapsed. And that's what we are seeing many times when the government needs to save the banks for bad decisions, because it is still the less of worse to save the banks than let the trust go in the whole system, because that would mean the end of the whole economy. But someone needs to manage this system. Who is the one who is managing this system? And let's talk about now how banks actually work. So, what do you think? What is the main responsibility of a country? Obviously, to maintain a healthy society. In a healthy society, people are paying their taxes, and obviously, no crime is being committed, right? Everybody is doing as they should by law, and they are paying their fair portion in terms of taxes. And who is the best to enforce this? We can't put a policeman next to every single citizen monitoring that everything is being kept as it should be. The banks. And this is the responsibility of the banks to make sure that no one is committing crime. So all the money flow within the society is according to the laws and regulations, and to make sure that everybody is paying their taxes. There are no creative people who are trying to cheat the system. So who are the banks? The banks are the extension of the government maintaining this healthy society through the financial flows. So someone has to maintain and regulate those banks. Someone needs to understand what the banks are doing and make sure that they are working together with the government on maintaining this healthy society. So there is a central bank, which is a unit of regulation in the area of those banks who are enforcing these rules and regulations to the society. And this is what we are calling the central banks. So the banks are regulated by the central banks. Banks have a very limited wiggle room of what they can and what they cannot do. And this is very important to understand, because when the bank is enforcing some kind of decision on you, it doesn't mean that the bank is the one who is enforcing this decision. Who is enforcing it? The regulator, which is the central bank. And who is regulating the central bank? The government itself. So the banks in this way can be looked at as semi-governmental institutions. It could be a private institution, yes, but the operational work and the whole responsibility of the banking system is to maintain the society where everybody's paying their taxes and no crime is being committed. So in this way, the banks are the backbone of the economy, enforcing different decisions what the government is making in terms of monetary or fiscal politics. For example, increasing the interest rate. That means that if the banks are increasing the interest rate, people are more entitled to keep their money in the bank. That increases the savings and that reduces the spendings. So the society, through the different economical ways, obviously, there's a whole, subject and the industry, which is the economist, is based on those kind of decisions what the government can make to affect the society's behavior. But this is just one of those. But this is basically the basis of the monetary politics, what the government is trying to enforce on society. It's always happening through the banks. So the banks are the ones who are forcing the legal payment movements. So the banks should take the responsibility and are taking the responsibility to make sure that no crime is committed and to make sure that the tax payments are being done. That means that everybody is paying their fair bits. So if we are thinking about that, we can understand why everywhere nowadays they are cutting back more and more on the cash-based society and encouraging people to use the international banking system, use their bank cards, keep their money in the bank, because it's going to be easier to monitor how the cash and the money is flowing within a society, and maintain that everybody is indeed paying their fair taxes, and everything is legal. So the banks in this way have to hold a license, which is the authorization from the central bank to be able to enforce these kind of activities. So the central bank is monitoring that everything is okay and giving the license to the bank, who is then proving to their customers that they are doing everything as they should. So the banks should also report back to the tax offices. This is when it happens, when I have a couple of clients who say that, okay, so if I'm living in Germany and I'm opening a Belgian account, then my tax office is not going to know about it. No, it doesn't work like that. So banks have to report back on every single money movement to the relevant tax office of a person. And yes, not that many. There are still countries and banks who are not part of this reporting system, but nowadays they are less and less, and they are less and less likely to be able to move funds on behalf of you if they are not reporting back to the tax office, because simply the whole international agreement over money flows and banking is based on to enforce those two things, make sure that everybody is paying their taxes, and obviously no crime is committed. So in this way, the bank has a dilemma. So they get the penalty in case that they are doing something that they shouldn't. They are non-compliant. They are onboarding clients that they shouldn't. They are executing transactions that they shouldn't. Or they are not checking what's going on. So they have to make sure that whatever is happening on their operation, in their institution, on their accounts, is legal and is not supporting tax avoidance. So they have to impose certain type of checks on every single money movement which is happening. And of course, they get a penalty in case something goes wrong and they are found out to be assisting in tax avoidance or money laundering, which is the other expression of tax cheating. But they still need to generate the profit. So the banks are chasing the ideal client who is low risk. There is no risk of wrongdoing, of money laundering, on tax evasion, who is low risk, who is clear cut, who is understandable what the company or an individual is doing, and it's easy to be monitored. So those are the ideal clients. But since everybody is chasing those clients, there is an abundance of financial product for those low risk clients. So now we need to understand how banks think. Banks want to avoid risk. They have a good portfolio of clients they are managing. They are creating profit in a way that they are actually creating profit as of today. And every single time when they are onboarding a new client or a new transaction is happening on their platform, they are taking some kind of risk. So they want to make sure that they are avoid risk as much as they can, but obviously maximizing the profit. So that's when banks introduced the so-called compliance department, which is making the relevant checks and reporting back to the authorities. Banks subjectively, because this is not an internationally agreed category, but banks subjectively putting clients in different risk categories. You heard me talking about the low risk, that could be medium risk, and that could be high risk. And this is all based on the individual and independent risk assessment of the financial institution or bank who is actually classifying those clients. Normally, startups are those ones who, I don't know you, I don't trust you. Startups have high hopes, obviously high volumes, where hopefully I'm going to charge banking fees, but will they really meet those goals? Will they really make it in a way that me as a financial institution is cashing out on them? or I'm spending time, energy, effort, and money to onboard those clients, and the account is going to be empty. So startups are usually considered higher risk for this reason because no one really worked with them before. I don't really know what they are really doing. I know that they want good, but are they really going to do what they promise to do? And are they going to even generate volume? Can they pay my banking fees? And also, there are different higher risk verticals which are inherently classified as high risk. For example, gambling, which is subject to different rules and regulations in different areas of the world, investment companies, other financial institutions. It could be licensed substances, for example, drugs and pharmaceuticals, or even any other kind of content or product or service which is legal in one country or one area of the world, but might be restricted or illegal in another way of the world. So that's why online is hard to pinpoint, because when we are talking about a brick and mortar bakery, I know that it is on that street in that country under this country's rules, VAT or GST, taxation, submissions, the clients are coming from the same country, it's clear cut. But when we are talking about online businesses, and mainly those online businesses are having international transactions, there is always a question that, okay, you are legal here, but are you still legal there? Are you really not committing any kind of tax crime or tax avoidance there? And as we mentioned, this is also the bank's responsibility to maintain those transactions, the legality and non-tax avoidance. So that's why certain verticals, certain kind of activities, and just simply being online sometimes can put you in a high risk category. But the banks still need to balance out their portfolio, high risk, low risk, with the profit. So the compliance need to make sure that they understand who are they dealing with. Know your customer, KYC, or know your business, in case that we are talking about a business client, has to be checked at every time when we are onboarding a new client. So we need to have the relevant documents. We need to understand what the business does, and really understand what are the transactions which this company or a person will execute in the banking platform. One thing is very important to mention. Back at the day, smaller economies, smaller countries, they could only get in the international race to get foreign investment in a way when they are dropping taxation. So that's what we have seen a lot of places in, we call it banana republics, when smaller countries, offshore areas might be subject to zero tax, which is completely legal, but it's not really ethical, and it's really frowned upon on other economics who are imposing higher taxes on the businesses and individuals who are living in that country. So what happened was that the only way to restrict these creative, not tax evasion, but tax optimization habits, those bigger economics got together and created money laundering rules and regulations. That means that if you are an online business, you have to have some kind of substance to prove why you're trading from a certain country and not from another one. So just put this in an example. If I'm sitting in Germany, breathing the German air, walking on the German floor and enjoying the German sun, why do I have a company in Panama and paying zero taxes on those transactions? Something is not right. The banks should not support these kind of activities. So the banks have to now enforce a so-called local director and company rule, which means that wherever the director is living, that's where the director is exercising management and control over a company. That's when the director is making decisions. That's where the director is managing the company from. So the company has to be paying taxes in a country when the director is usually, in case that there is no other substance. If obviously we have a headquarter or we got payroll for these companies in a certain country, that's an easy to pinpoint that. But this was created to help bigger economics control those money movements, which are fueling zero taxation in an offshore jurisdiction. And then, in a way, it's a creative way of avoiding taxes. Even though it might be legal, it doesn't mean that it's going to satisfy the banks. So whatever is legal, it doesn't mean that the banks will like that too. So the compliance also need to understand what are the target areas of the activity. So if I'm selling products and services only in Germany, again, why am I paying 0% tax in Panama through my company? And the compliance also needs to understand that if the company is acting in a certain jurisdiction, is doing it legally. So many times you're asking for a license or at least a legal opinion, which is proving that the activity is legit. And of course, all the financial institutions have to keep different records for audits in case that the regulator comes and checks everything, as well as up-to-date records. So that's the reason when the compliance of a financial institution, when your bank is calling you and asking for the updated passport copy or the latest financial statement. So the financial institutions, to make sure that everything is okay and everything is happening legally and in a non-tax evasion way, they need to make sure that they are doing those continuous checks to be always up to date and in understanding of what's happening on that operation. So the bank has now a decision. Either they are only taking these vanilla low risk clients, but there's a huge competition because everybody wants those clients, and they are charging lower fees just to be competitive on the market, and that results to lower profit. Or if they have a large low risk portfolio, maybe they could take a bit of a higher risk. If anything goes wrong, we are still fine, right? And enter into the market when there are lower competition, because less financial institutions have the risk appetite to take the higher risk guys, which can generate higher fees and obviously a higher profit. This decision is based on the banking risk internal decision. So that means that banks might be able to accept a client on a Monday, but might change the risk appetite on a Tuesday and close those accounts. So many times when we are facing closed accounts or even increased fees, it's not our fault as the activity of the business, but it's simply banking risk decisions. Losing or gaining a new client, changing the portfolio. So this can lead to a changed risk appetite in the financial institution. Also, when the banks are engaging with the new correspondent banks, the correspondent banks are the ones who are connecting different banks to the other banks in the world. If they have a new correspondent bank and that correspondent bank has a different risk appetite, the bank has to adhere to that. And obviously that can change not only their risk appetite, but also the fees. So let's talk about how to get accepted, how to get those best banks and best payment service providers. So remember what we mentioned until now. Our goal is to mean no headache for the bank, to show as low risk as possible. We are clear cut. We have no offshore. It's understandable. Where is our target market? Where is our director? We are doing everything legally. There is no opportunity for the wrongdoing. Not a will, but there is not even a possibility when something can go wrong. So we need to show the clear business, a clear money flow, an impeccable way of document submission, KYC if it's a person, KYB as a business. And we have to show that we are completely and fully legal. And as I mentioned, not even a possibility of the wrongdoing. So how should our international group of companies look like? Avoid the obvious offshore or shell companies, because if it's too obvious, banks and financial institutions are not stupid. They know exactly why are you having a company in the British Virgin Islands or in Panama. And based on that, they can easily say, I'm not going to take you. And this means that maybe you're risking losing a really good banking or financial provider solution just because you introduced an offshore company for a couple of % of tax optimization. Maybe it doesn't worth it. So we need to understand for the whole group, where is the director, where the management decisions are made, because that shall determine where we incorporate the company, not always the taxation, but the place of the management and control. And also, if it's a bit blurry, where are customers, where our products and services are being sold, because that proves to the financial institution why we as an online business is trading between different countries. We need to prove a clean and easy to understand setup and payment flow, because more companies in the line, the more headache for the compliance to check, the more documents we need to submit. So try to avoid this and keep an as easy to understand, clear-cut structure, clear-cut operation, and easy to understand company setup as well. What are activities? Sometimes the bank is asking for a business plan. Try to make it as clear as possible. If your grandma doesn't understand what you're doing, chances are the bank compliance will not, because they're also just humans. They are just going through the bank application, sometimes 50 a day. And if they don't grasp the whole meaning of your activity from day one, you are risking to get rejected. And it's very, very important, because in my career, I've seen so many good ideas failing simply because they couldn't find any bank who's supporting their operation. Why? Because they started in such a complicated way that we couldn't convince any of those compliance officers in the bank to take the risk with that operation. If it's blurry, if it's not understandable, the financial institution is not going to touch it. It's easy as that. We also need to show a clear payment flow, as we said, where the money comes from, how often, what currency, why, how does it enter to our group structure, how does it enter our financial institution partner, bank or payment service provider, what is the reason for those payments. In case that the client is unhappy, how are we refunding that? And from that, how we are using those funds to pay out the salaries, to pay out our suppliers, and obviously pay out our shareholders as well. It has to be crystal clear. What are the payment methods that we are taking? Are the clients paying us with bank wires? Are they paying us with cards? Are they paying us with the top-up vouchers? Where are these clients based as well? So this has to be always disclosed to the financial institution to be able to trace it, and that reduces the opportunity for the wrongdoing as well. Many times I see that there is a good idea, for example, marketplaces. When the marketplace decides that I want to hold money on behalf of my clients, this is impossible. Normally, a company which is handling funds on behalf of third party, or even touching funds of a third party, even for 1 second, has to have a financial license. Why? Because in that case, that client is forgetting to declare it on the tax return, and no one is reporting it back after that client to the relevant tax office that, hey, by the way, this company has 1 million, it's in my pocket right now, but it belongs to them. There's an opportunity for wrongdoing. Again, it's not doing the wrongdoing, there is an opportunity. So that's why many times those marketplace companies need to hire or need to agree with an external financially licensed wallet service providers who are handling funds on behalf of their clients. We need to see what are target areas and make sure, it's common sense, but you would be surprised how many people don't really follow that. Make sure that wherever we are trying to offer those services, it's not illegal. Dating services in Muslim countries, obviously it's not going to go through, right? So it has to be super secure and supported by a license or even a legal opinion to be sure that the financial institution is not taking something which is illegal. And sometimes they are also asking for the manufacturer agreements or the reseller agreements, just to really understand the whole activity and the whole flow. Many times they check your website as well. How does it look like? How does it feel? Does it have any typo? Does it have even reasonable prices? If you're selling I don't know, electronic stuff for much higher than the market price, that definitely is going to ring a bell to the payment provider and suspect that there might be some fraud behind it. There might be some scam. Are you really selling what you're saying that you're selling? Is it not a cover up? It has to have also a clear indication that who is operating the website and who is having that license. If Apple company has the license, their company will not be able to apply for a banking solution with Apple's company license. We need to see clearly which website, which product, which service belongs to what company in the group. And what is the complaint procedure? If your clients are unhappy with the service, how do you refund them? Or you even refunding them? How do you deal with the disputes? What are your contact us page? Is it easy to contact you? Is it easy to raise a dispute? What is your privacy policy? How are you handling GDPR data if you're dealing with European customers? What are the terms and conditions? So this has to be all included in the website, which is an online representation of your activities. Also, needless to say, but let's go through the documentation. Very, very important. You have the relevant license or legal opinion, as you mentioned. Your company documents are always up to date. No one cares where you lived 3 years ago. Everything has to be within 90 days. What are the key personals KYC documentation? Know your customer, obviously the utility bill, the passport copy. Many times they are asking for even a CV, utility bill. Many times I see that clients are still living with a partner or parents and they don't have a utility bill. This is a rookie mistake and it's so easy to correct, and you spare a lot of headache for yourself in case that you're applying for a new bank, just to have at least one utility bill on your name. And if you're handling other clients, then you have to have your own anti-money laundering and KYC policy. You as a company, you don't have to have a financial license to be affected by the government's rules and regulations, which says that nothing can happen under your arm, which is obviously illegal or helping with the tax evasion. Sorry, let's go back one. And your data and website is secure enough. If you're handling cards, you're adhering to the PCI DSS compliance, or in any other way, you're handling your collected data, even if it's a newsletter, in a relevant and legal way. And the most important thing, and a lot of people don't even mention that, nowadays we are living in a society when the social media presence is important. You have to see what are the reviews written about your company, and you have to correct in case that there is an adverse media about your activities. On your Instagram posts, what are the product pics? How do you present your services? Are you professional enough, or you look like a scammer? Because if you look like a scammer, even though that you're not scamming anyone, the financial institution has all the right to reject your application or even close the existing accounts. Many times I've seen that even though that we are living in a society when free speech should be a given, certain financial institutions are closing down accounts based on individual opinions. Is it right or wrong? I'm not here to judge or comment, but this is happening. So this is what we need to also pay attention. When we are living through turbulent times, through wars, through COVID, I have seen, unfortunately, applications are getting rejected because of a personal opinion or an opinion what the company represents. So this is also something to think about. Does it worth it? If it's yes, by all means, but you need to understand that there could be a risk with this as well. And many times the financial institution also sees how many followers and likes do you have. Obviously, the larger likes and followers projects that your company is successful, you're going to have a lot of sales, you're going to have a lot of volume on the bank account, so the bank can charge you hefty fees, so they like it. Also, what are the different chats on different forums, Reddit? Overall, what is the opinion about your company online, your services and products? And I actually had a very funny case when we got rejected everywhere with a client of mine. And we figured out after a deep research that there was a company with a similar name offering similar products, and they did a terrible job. So there was a lot of dispute. Clients were unhappy. They posted on forums. They posted really bad reviews. And that was the reason that they also got rejected, because the person who is in a compliance is just a human, tried to do a quick Google search, found the name, adverse media, rejection immediately. So that's also a good idea, to start Googling yourself once in a blue moon, just to see not only about your company, but maybe you find something which has nothing to do with the company, but also can come out in a Google search. So in a summary, we mentioned a lot of things, but let's summarize. Nowadays, criminals have a harder and harder times to scam people, to create something which is illegal, obviously, or avoid tax. And this is how the government's trying to maintain a healthy society. This is where we are going towards. This is why we have less and less cash activities, because we need to somehow monitor what we are doing. Taxes must be paid. Try not to outsmart the system, because in the long term, you might actually pay more on the banking fees. You have to present a clear activity, an easy to understand setup, and a clear payment flow every single time when you're dealing with mainly financial or banking providers. And if you're getting lost in this, I don't blame you, but this is what we are here for. Get a professional to help you with this. So, in a nutshell, that was what I could tell you within 45 minutes. You can reach me at victoria@psvangels.com, or on Skype, or on Telegram. And if you're interested in more intricacies of this beautiful and exciting industry of payments and banking, this book is now out on Amazon. Do a little search, and I hope that you're reaching out to me with different questions. Let's see how we can make your life easier, and how I can help you to move money in a safer, cheaper, and more effective way. And I think now we have some time for the questions. So let's see, let's go back to all those questions and see how I can assist you with all of that.
All right, thank you for that informative presentation. Now it's time to open the floor for questions from our audience. Please feel free to type your questions in the Q&A box, or in the chat box. While we are waiting for the question, I just want to make a quick announcement. So everyone on this group who are not yet a member of ITC, or International Trade Council, please feel free to reach out to me and we can offer you free membership. Also, this webinar is recorded and it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, and everyone will get a certificate of participation. Just wait through your email in the next 24 to 48 hours. So I have one question here. I'll show on the stage. Go ahead. What do you handle? How do you handle chemical companies in the rise of environmental consciousness?
Thank you very much for this question, Aditya. Actually, what I assume that you're asking, that how financial institutions and banks are handling these chemical companies when the regulation is getting tighter and tighter and stricter regarding the society to improve their environmental consciousness. In this case, unfortunately, what I see, because we have a lot of clients who are dealing with, as I mentioned, pharmaceuticals, drugs, and even chemical products, many times we see that the bank is just closing all doors due to the reputational risk, due to the risk of the increased regulation and improved licenses, which, you know, many times a financial institution just can't keep up with all these changing regulation. So they cannot be 100% sure that whatever the company is doing is legal. So that results in straight up rejection. So many times what we see, I don't know this, I don't want to deal with this, I don't know if you're legal or not, better to reject you. And that doesn't mean that the company itself is doing something wrong. It just means that these kind of companies who are subject to higher risk score from a banking perspective, to all those reasons that we mentioned, unfortunately are having harder times to find reliable and secure payment service providers. And also, it's a big challenge to optimize their banking and payment fees, which is now being high risk. Obviously, the sky is the limit for the bank. Whoever is taking that kind of risk with them, how much they are charging. So yes, not only chemical companies are dealing with stricter regulation, but other verticals as well. But yes, banks unfortunately straight up rejecting a lot of verticals which they just simply don't have capability to deal with from a compliance perspective.
All right, thank you. Next question here. Which is the best bank now in the world?
It depends. I have a different idea to have a bank for a person. It's a different bank for an online business. It's a different bank for an e-commerce company. It's a different bank for online gambling. It depends on your company. It depends on your activity. It depends which areas that you are dealing with, because I can say that, I don't know, Barclays, but maybe they are not present in I don't know what country, right? Or we can say HSBC, yes, but obviously they have different products for different clientele as well. And that's the beauty of this industry, because with the technological advancement, companies now are able to find the best suited payment service providers and banks for their needs. So if you are a company which is sending money on a regular basis, let's say from Dubai to India, and you also have a headquarter in Germany, you need to see what is the bank which is supporting all those three locations. It might not be the best bank in the world for me as a person who I have different needs, but it might be the best for you. So that's why you have a strong payment team internally, or you're having a payment consultant to determine that what are the best payment services and products in the world for you at the given moment.
Thank you. How much does the visual representation of a company matter for banking acceptance?
A lot. I would say, unfortunately, but it is a lot. So nowadays, we are really living in a world when everything is online. So think about it. Compliance is a human which is sitting in a desk dealing with 50 applications a day, and their decision to be able to take the risk with an application or not. So the risk is high. What's the only way to make sure that the company is legit? And as I said, it's completely subjective, is to go online and Google that company and find out more on the online presence. So there is a big portion of the visual representation when it comes to compliance decision, definitely. What
What
kind
kind
of
of startups?
startups are
Sorry, go ahead.
recognized by the bank? Yes, I mean, all startups are recognized by banks because every startup needs to connect with the world, right? You need to pay the salaries, you need to get your shareholder funding, you need to rent an office, you need to eat. So at one point, every startup needs to have a bank or a payment provider connected to their activities. But those startups that I'm mentioning who are really having a problem, I'm not talking about those bakery who is like, on the high street baking the bread. Local clients are eating it. Local VAT is being paid on that. It's crystal clear what's going on. I'm talking about all those innovative startups where the business plan could be a bit mentally challenging for a compliance person to grasp it in 5 minutes, or there is some kind of unique element. There is a blockchain mentioned on that because many times, unfortunately, based on the previous years mishaps of this industry, unfortunately, many banks are saying that, okay, if it's blockchain or crypto related tokenization, I don't even want to hear about it. So yes, those online startups are the ones who are having bigger difficulty. And obviously, it just adds insult to injury if those startups are international, if they want to move funds from one country to another, because that says that the compliance has an extra layer of difficulty and risk that they have to deal with. So yes.
All right, another one. Why banks are needed as mediators when clients are at this age could be connected with each other through blockchain system.
Exactly, and that's why we are having the pilot programs for CBDCs, which are the central bank digital currencies. It is still centralized, but all the money is now electronic, and the central bank is then able to find out how the money moves, that money specifically, how is it being spent, who is owning it, who is sitting on it, when is it going to be introduced back to the economy. So there are pilot programs now all over the world to introduce the central bank's own digital currency, which is then going to be much easier to monitor and then cut out banks as mediators. Obviously, it's a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of uproar from people regarding privacy rights, because how comes that the government is seeing what I'm doing and controlling my money. So it is a very, very sensitive subject, but you're absolutely right. In this age, there is a way where people are aiming towards a connected, blockchain-based, digital-based system where everything is transparent. It is still has to be centralized, because we see what happens when things are not centralized. Unfortunately, it opens doors to scams and illegal activities as well. So at the moment, it's still under the control of the central banks, but those are the digital currencies. Yes.
Thank you. So next question is, if your country's system is corrupt from the government where the arm and even the banks themselves practice turning into blind eye, how would you build confidence to follow this structure, or would you suggest looking outside the bank?
Trust me, I can talk about it for years and years, but we just don't have, unfortunately, time for that. I'm talking about here in an ideal scenario. If everything is working as it should be, the government should be the one who is you're electing and exercising your rights and making sure that they are maintaining a healthy society. How is it actually being exercised at the moment is a whole different topic and a different question. But ideally, this is the original idea, and this is the original understanding of how the banking system should work. Now, how is it being exercised is different. It's the same thing that right now, if you're murdering someone, you go to jail. It's a different question that they can catch you and how to minimize the risk that you are doing the murder, and how the whole justice system is making sure that you are the one who is going to jail and not someone else. So this is unfortunately, I understand this is not being always exercised perfectly, but the idea, what we are talking about, in an ideal world, this is how it should be, and this is how it should work.
All right, thank you, Victoria. This is a very interactive webinar, I may say. As much as you want to accept more questions, we only have 4 minutes. So we have one last question here. I will
Sure.
show on the stage. So why sometimes banks are taking hard line even more stricter than the sanction by authorities?
Reputational risk. So, for example, let's put one example: adult entertainment. Nothing wrong with that from a financial perspective. It's a content. It is easy to manage. You know what you are selling. There is no dispute about it. It was not good. I'm claiming back my money. However, there could be different sanctions or reputational risk in certain countries to handle those companies who are either creating or dealing with these kind of adult related contents. It's not illegal, but it's frowned upon. And the bank's own internal risk is the one who is determining that how much money I can get out of these companies versus how many clients am I losing because they are, losing the trust in my financial institution. I don't want to bank with those banks who are, handling the payments for those adult entertainment companies as well. So then the bank's own private decision is to make sure that I'm dealing with this or not. Or for example, I can mention the online gambling, I can mention investment, I can mention any kind of religions group, political supports. There are a lot of companies, a lot of banks, financial institutions who say, I'm not going to get involved in politics, fundraising, or even events for different political events because it's a reputational risk. So sanctions are one thing, which is government making sure that, okay, we are restricting people who are not playing by our rules. We don't want to deal with them. We don't allow them to enter into our international banking activities. But it's a different thing what the banks think that it's acceptable for their own risk appetite, for their own shareholders or not. So that's where we see a lot of differences. And the problem is that banks don't have to tell you why they are rejecting you. So many times you see clients, no, why? No, I don't have to justify my decision. And it takes time and obviously expertise in this market to pinpoint that that's why you got rejected. That's right there. If you erase that, then you will be able to go ahead. But yeah, a lot of information, unfortunately, right now it's in the mind of payment professionals, and it's not publicly discussed online.
Thank you, Victoria. So I think we can conclude the webinar for today. Before we end, I would like to ask Victoria with your anything you would like to say or announce before we end the educational session.
Anytime anyone has a question, I'm here to help. My aim and goal is to demystify this whole payment and banking industry, and that's the reason I wrote the book as well. So, if you want to have more understanding of how banks think, that's what I try to summarize all my expertise in this book, which is available on Amazon. And feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'm very open for a conversation. And yeah, that's what we are trying to do here, make your life easier from a banking and payment perspective. So feel free to reach out to us. We are here to help. And thank you so much again for the opportunity, Ron. Thank you very much for the International Trade Council for this great webinar. And I'm looking forward seeing you again very soon.
Yes, thank you so much, Victoria, and we also look forward to have another session with you in the future. So thank you all for your active participation and insightful contribution. We hope today's webinar has been very informative and valuable for everyone. Please feel free to reach out if you have any further questions or required additional assistance. Wishing you all continued success and growth in your endeavors. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you so much. Speak later, guys. Bye, bye, bye.